The questioner says, if a man was with his wife, he was intimate with his wife, he heard the adhan was made as he was intimate with his wife, and then he stopped. Then he withdrew, walked away. Is the fast of this man valid or invalid? All right, so we have 2 to 3 scenarios, 2 to 3. First scenario, he hears the adhan, then drinks. The adhan is not done yet. He hears it, then picks up the cup. Second or half scenario, the adhan is made, he has the cup in his hand, and he continues to drink as the adhan is going on. I mean, understand this? He doesn't just put the cup down immediately. He was drinking already, but he finishes before the adhan is done. And the third scenario, a man was intimate with his wife, and the mu'adhin made the adhan, he heard the adhan, and then he stopped. I.e., if the mu'adhin made the adhan, that means what? What does that mean? What does that necessitate? What does it mean if the mu'adhin made the adhan? Specifically the third scenario. That fajr was what? Was in. Pay attention now. If the adhan is accurate, fajr was in. So in theory, one could say his fast is because he had intercourse during the time, but he didn't finish, he stopped. He walked away. Is the fast of this man valid? All right, these are very important questions because one way or another, somehow they're going to pertain to you one way or another, one scenario or another. Eating, drinking, stopping, wait, you can't, it's time for the adhan, but the mu'adhin didn't make the adhan yet. Or I ate past the time and I didn't realize it, and then when I looked up, I stopped. Everybody understand this? I didn't know it was 5:25. I just looked up, subhanAllah, the cookie is already in my mouth. Do I spit out the cookie, or am I allowed to eat and swallow the rest of the cookie and just, khalas, it's 5:26. The answer says, الجواب هذان سؤالان جيدان لم يسبق أحد بالسؤال عنهما وسأذكر لك ما قاله علماء المذهب الهادوي حول هذين السؤالين ثم ما قاله غيرهم من علماء الفقه المجتهدين من علماء هذا العصر والعلماء المتقدمين. He says these two questions, so the Mufti, he makes these scenarios only two. Or he says these two questions are good questions. Su'alani jayyidani, they're good questions that I haven't, or he says no one has asked about before. Whether he asked me, he says, lam yasbiqha. All right, no one asked these questions before. All right, and what I'm going to do is, I'm going to answer these questions based off of the styles of these ulama of these different schools. First and foremost, the ulama of a madhab which is called al-Hadawi, and that is a well-known madhab of fiqh in the lands of Yemen. You probably haven't heard of it before or seen it before. Orthodox, unorthodox, outside of the four, what's important is well known in the country of this mufti, and in most cases the country of this questioner. And then he said, I'm going to mention what the other ulama have said regarding these two questions of past and present. And he said ulama mujtahideen, independent scholars. He's answering the mujtahideen, the ulama who are independent, not the ulama of taqleed, not the scholars of what? Of following and blind following. وَلَقَدْ حَكَى الْمَهْدِيُّ فِي الْبَحْرِ عن أهل المذهب الهادوي وعن أبي حنيفة والشافعي أن من أصبح أي دخل عليه وقت الصيام الشرعي وهو أي الصائم مولج أي متصل بأهله اتصالا جنسيا فنزع لم يفسد صومه لقوله تعالى حتى يتبين لكم إلى آخره. وقال فإن استمر أفطر أي صار مفطرا شرعا وآثم كذا يعني آثما ويكفر عند من يوجب الكفارة إلى آخر ما قاله. All right, he says, and this is a very long answer. We're going to try our best to summarize it. What's this? No. Pages, literally, no exaggeration. All right, if I'm not mistaken, let's see. Yeah, and this is pages long. All right. So the first answer, he says, listen carefully. He says the first view is the view of the Hadithis, Abu Hanifa as well, Shafi'i, is that the one who was with his wife, it's time for the salah, and he stops, his fasting is valid. The fasting is sound. The time came what? The time came in. So technically speaking, he's too late. But he did what? He walked away. Then that fast will be valid. That fast will be valid. He stopped, finished, didn't finish, whatever you want to call it. He walked away. All right, moving forward. The proof, Allah says, حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَكُمْ. Eat and drink until the thread is made what? Clear to you. Obviously, the man wasn't clear that it was time. He was unaware. He wouldn't have done that. As far as if the man continues, then obviously his fast will be broken and he will be sinful. Athim, he will have a sin. And the scholars who say that he must make a kafara, he would have to make a kafara. What is the kafara? For having intercourse in Ramadan, intentionally. 2 months of fasting, 2 continuous months, he says.
Just for both men and women, or just for them?
What's the kafara? What's the expiation? You. Yeah. Yeah, you. You gotta guess. You can't like Sheikh Imtiaz, I'll do you. Arif, what's the kafara?
Well, you gotta fast, and then also, can you feed the poor people?
A few brothers in the masjid? A few brothers in the masjid you feed?
I don't know the amount, but I think another way of doing it is like you can feed the poor people, right?
Feed the poor people. Iceman, what you say? What's the expiation? I said that.
You can't afford it.
Then you gotta fast, all right? Tell you, he gave an answer. He threw a punch. Nafis. طيب. All right, so the most لا يا شيخ أنت ممنوع معلش. حتى في شهر الكرم نحن نبخل عليك معلش. بخلنا عليك أنت ممنوع لي إجابة لا يجوز معلش. طيب شهر يعني صيام شهرين متتابعين is the most accurate answer. Secondly, Arif said feeding the poor people, but the answer needs to be tweaked. The first thing that he would have to do would to be manumit a slave. That comes first. If he cannot manumit a slave, then he would have to. What's next? Fasting in 2 months or something else? Feeding, then fasting, or fasting and feeding? What will be the easiest punishment? Arif, what will be the easiest punishment? La abadan. Fasting 60 days straight? Absolutely. No problem. Done. That's a different story. If a person can't afford it. But if you have the money, then obviously paying would be easier than. No doubt about that. So if Ramadan is, with all of its blessings, is a challenge, if you work, right? You go to school, you can't eat, no coffee, no breakfast, nothing, of 30 days. So imagine that now, what? Back to back. That's gonna take a toll on you. So for sure, it's easier for me to support the iftar. Whether it's in New York, whether it's overseas, it's cheaper, that's the easiest option. Freeing the slave will be, that's number one. Where do I find a slave? How much does it cost? You gotta do that. And if not, then the 2 months and then feeding. Now, if you can't afford none of the 3, or you can't physically fast 2 months, that's a different discussion. All right, moving forward. قال ابن مظفر في البيان من طلع الفجر وهو مخالط لأهله أو في يده طعام أو شراب فعليه أن يتنحى ويلقي ما في فمه ويصح صومه خلافا لزفر والفقيه يوسف وإن استمر بطل صومه إجماعا ذكره في الشرح وقيل إن فيه خلاف الحسن وعطاء وداود قال والمراد بذلك في من كان على رأس جبل عال بحيث يشاهد أول الفجر لا من كان في موضع منخفض أو يسمع المؤذن وهو كذلك فقد بطل صومه. هكذا قال في البيان. وحكى في هاشمه عن العلامة يحيى بن حمزة نقلا عن النجري أن صومه لا يفسد ولو أذن المؤذن. وقال السيد سابق في فقه السنة ما لفظه: ويباح للصائم أن يأكل ويشرب ويجامع حتى يطلع الفجر، فإذا طلع الفجر وفي فمه طعام وجب عليه أن يلفظ، أو كان مجامعا وجب عليه أن ينزع، فإن لفظ أو نزع صح صومه. وإن ابتلع ما في فمه من طعام مختارا أو استدام الجماع أفطر، أي صار مفطرا شرعا. روى البخاري ومسلم عن عائشة رضي الله عنها أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: إن بلالا يؤذن بليل فكلوا واشربوا حتى يؤذن ابن أم مكتوم. وقال ابن حزم في المحلى: ولا يلزم صوم في رمضان ولا في غيره إلا يتبين طلوع الفجر الثاني. وأما ما لم يتبين فالأكل والشرب والجماع مباح، كل ذلك مهما كان على شك من طلوع الفجر أو على يقين من أنه لم يطلع. فمن رأى الفجر وهو يأكل فليقذف ما في فمه من طعام أو شراب وليصم ولا قضاء عليه. ومن رأى الفجر وهو يجامع فليترك من وقته وليصم ولا قضاء عليه، سواء في ذلك كان طلوع الفجر بعد مدة طويلة أو قريبة. فلو توقف باهتا فلا شيء عليه وصومه تام، ولو أقام عامدا فعليه الكفارة. All right, so the Mufti, he then goes on to mention several details and several statements, and this is a beauty of this fatwa and of this book and of this Mufti. Alhamdulillah, this is one of the reasons why I purchased this book many years ago in Medina. So this Mufti, he passed away. He was from Yemen. He was the official Mufti of the country. He came from a country, he had a madhab, but one thing you notice about his fatwa, he was not a fanatic, nor was he a bigot. And he was learned of all of the madhabs. This is what I believe, this is my opinion, this is what I think is correct, but he was aware. And this is something which is lost in traditional scholarship among many people today. They only know one single narrow view, and that's it. And they stick to that. That's not the worst thing. The problem is, number one, New York City isn't of one specific trend or race or background. So would it make sense for you to be an imam of a masjid in New York City in which you have different races, different backgrounds, and you're only learned in one? Would that make sense? That wouldn't make sense, because New York City is a melting pot. So you need to be aware of what's up and what's down. Make sense or not? You need to be aware of this. You come from Bangladesh, he comes from Kenya, two different parts of the world. He comes from West Africa, he comes from South Africa. He comes from, I'm from Queens. I'm not from no part of Africa. Born and raised here in America, my parents, so on and so forth. I accepted Islam in jail. I accepted Islam in college in the 60s. So there's gonna be different type of people. And you have to know how to deal with those different type of people, even if you have your own personal opinion on what's right. But you have to be aware. You have to be what? You have to be aware. Secondly, the ulama of the past, they made a condition for alim not to be muqallid, not to be a blind follower. Also an alim, he must know the khilaf of the people of knowledge. And if you don't know, if you only know one style, it's not, your scholarship is not going to be thorough. Even if you give the fatwa based off of just one madhab. All right, so some ulama here, they said, and it also shows the level of knowledge of an alim, because it takes years to learn one way, to learn one style, let alone what? Several. So if I spoke 4 or 5 languages, what would that say about me? What would you say about me if I knew 5 languages? You're a linguist. What's a linguist? What's so special about being a linguist? You can communicate with, you're 5 different people actually. You're 5 different men. I speak Spanish, I speak Mandarin, I speak Bangla, I speak Hindi, I speak this. That's 5 different communities I can reach and speak out to. What else would it say about me if I knew 5 languages? Absolutely, it's a sign of intelligence. No doubt about that. What else would it show? I said, if I knew 5 languages, that would show a great deal of flexibility. Mental what? Flexibility. And mental flexibility, dealing with different people, is a must. If you're rigid and stiff, you can't deal with different types of people. Last but not least, it would show my devotion to language. Because it takes how long to master what? One language. How many years? The grammar, the poetry, the vocabulary. So now that's 5 different diverse languages. So in Islamic fiqh, I've mastered Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi'i, Hanbali, Hadawi, and the comparative. That will show the level of that what? Of that alim. Is that he's devoted to ilm. All right, so we can see that here in this answer. All right, so the first quote he says is the one who's with his wife when Fajr comes in, or the one who has food in his hand, or he has a drink. فَعَلَيْهِ أَنْ يَتَنَحَّى. He has to desist. He has to stand down. He can't finish the cup or anything else. And if he does so, then his fast would be valid. That's the first view. His fast will be what? His fast will be valid. And he mentions the names of several different jurists, from them the ulama of the Hanafi madhab, right? And the FYI, Imam Abu Hanifa's disciples were not blind following fanatics. They often differed with him. His own students took different views against him, and Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, he didn't banish them. He didn't say, get away from me if you're not going to take my opinion. Stay away from me if you're not going to be la. So that's food for what? For thought with regards to today. Second view, or another quote he says here, as some say, is that if he's doubtful of the adhan, then he's allowed to continue eating, drinking, and being with his wife if he's doubtful. Even if he's what? If he's doubtful. So he doesn't have to stop until he himself is sure. This adhan is early. This prayer app is what? I don't trust that, even if he's doubtful. And then he mentions what some of these ulama of the past said concerning this. Is very interesting. He says, وَالْمُرَادُ بِذَلِكَ فِي مَنْ كَانَ عَلَى رَأْسِ جَبَلٍ عَالٍ. He says, the clarity is talking about someone who's on high altitude, i.e. he can see the horizon, versus someone who's at a what? Low altitude, in which he doesn't have the same clarity towards the coming in of Fajr. That's very interesting. And showing you the different rich details of the fiqh in itself. All right, tayyib. So there are many other details. We don't have time to mention all of them. This in itself is a full class. This is just a fa'idah of showing you the importance of asking questions. And last but not least, pay attention how this alim welcomed the question and the questioner. And he didn't send them away. If this question was asked in New York City today, how many imams would say it's a stupid question? How many? What do you mean? Of course you can't. Is this not the case? Most imams will say, of course you can't. Of course you can't. What do you mean you're still with your wife? You don't know that it's 5:25, ya akhi? Are you that stupid? Are you that dumb? Are you that, sexually aroused? You don't know that it's time to stop? Is this not the case? Am I making this up, Sheikh? Most imams will say that to this very day. And they would push the questioner away and call him a dummy. He, with all of his knowledge, he said what? Su'alani jayyidan. He says these are good questions. And no one asked him before, proving that the questioner has some type of courage. And the mufti, he congratulated him and he welcomed him for his what? For his courage. It's better for you to be embarrassed. It's better for you to feel like, oh, that's a crazy question, instead of you doing something that's wrong, that would displease Allah and can ruin and render your fast. Fortune favors the brave. You can't learn if you're too shy or if you're too prideful. And many of the Salaf as-Salih, they would say this: 2 people would never learn knowledge. Mustahyin or mustakbir. The one who's too soft and tender, I'm embarrassed, I don't want the people to laugh at me. And the one who's too big to ask the question. I don't ask the question because he's from a different race. I'm better than him. Or he's younger than me. It's a reality. Let's be real. People may not say it with their tongues, but we all know what we have in our hearts. But he's from a different country. I'm not going to ask him. In my country back home, right here in this masjid. Well, back home we do this. So therefore, I'm not going to ask the question. So if you have pride, or if you're shy, you'll never, ever learn. You have to do away with both of them before you can learn. So if I ask you, what's the ruling on this? You always give an answer. Even if you don't know, you give a what? You give a shot. Take a guess. That's how you what? That's how you learn. That's how you learn. Shyness is a great thing, not when it comes to learning. Not when it comes to what? Not when it comes to learning. That's a bad question. 525, Uncle Faz, how was he with his wife? He didn't know that it was time to stop. Old man too. With a henna maybe. Maybe with the henna, he became a shab with the henna. And it also goes to show, last but not least, out of this shows us, is that there is no thing called imsak. There's no imsak. There's no such thing as imsak. Imsak is when it's time for fajr. That's imsak. So if we're basing it off of time and calculation, imsak is 5:25 a.m. There is no 4:30 imsak. There is no 5 a.m. imsak. That's false. There's no basis for that. Obviously, if there was imsak, then he wouldn't have what? He wouldn't have been on it, all right? And he's a classical ulama, Hanafi, Shafi, Ibn Hazm, etc. So this imsak thing is not from the traditional Islamic scholarship. So spread the word. There is no such thing as imsak. Imsak is when it's time for fajr. I can eat and drink all the way until 5 what? 25. And some even said what? If I'm unsure of 5:25, there's no such thing as imsak. The Mufti, Sheikh Muhammad ibn Ismail al-Imrani, may Allah have mercy upon his soul. Wallahu ta'ala alam, wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak, ala abdihi wa rasulihi nabina wa imamina Muhammad. Wa iyyakum. Only for the young men. Bismillah. No, not at all. If you spit it out, you don't swallow anything, it does not nullify.